Top of the morning, Sonoma County, to all you manly men and lovely ladies out there, a hearty and healthy Irish hello. You're listening to the Celtic Coach radio show where science, spirituality and self-discovery meet. Yes, on Fridays from 1 to 3, they all meet, giving you the best of Irish music and the 80s every Friday here on KOWS.FM. Now, if you're driving around in your car, you can pick us up at 92.5 FM in the dial. If you're flying around in your spaceship, you can also pick us up at 92.5 FM on the dial. And if you want to get us on the wacky and World Wide Web, you can go to KOWS.FM. Welcome, everyone. Oh, boy, do we have a show for you today. Today we're going to be talking on the show. We're going to step outside the box a little bit today. We're going to be talking about healing humanity. What's next? And the parts of our show today are quite interesting. We're going to be looking at the world of parapsychology, which means para meaning outside the world of traditional psychology, ghosts, spirits, channeling, telekinesis, psychokinesis, ESP. We're also going to be talking about a fascinating, and I do mean a fascinating subject, dolphin healing for humanity. What can dolphins teach us, and what message do they have for us through our interaction with them in the past and also in the present? There's also going to be talking. I'm going to share some science around today around the actual healing that's happening with children with autism, handicapped children, children with brain dysfunction, and the healings, the miraculous healings that some of these children, actually, what am I saying? 90% learning and cognition success rate, 90%. That's huge. That's really huge. Also, are you wondering why you're binge watching on Netflix? Are you wondering why you're eating too much, or wondering what's going on? You can't sit still. There's something in the air. We're going to be talking about the summer solstice. But before all of that, allow me to introduce my guest today. She is the founder and director of the Sacred Future and the Transformational Leadership Program. She's also an international spiritual speaker, teacher, and healer. Maria has also been teaching and learning from Indigenous medicine in the higher education for over 10 years. She studied with Native teachers from 15 different traditional cultures. This lady has done her homework. She holds a master's in integral counseling psychology, a BA in cultural ecology and sustainable community. She's also a certified herbalist and clinical hypnotherapist. This lady, I got the honor to meet Maria before the show yesterday, and I have to say, you're in for a treat. A lady full of wisdom, practicality, no woo-woo here on the show, knowledge and intuition. Please put your virtual hands together for the lovely Maria Christina Owl. Hello, Maria. Can you hear us?
Yes. Aloha, Dermot. Aloha, everyone.
Aloha. Yeah, you're now you're in Hawaii. We're here in Sonoma County. I'm a little bit envious, I have to say, Maria. What's the how's it going out there? What's the weather like? Is it just beautiful there all the time?
Well, it's been interesting, because we are in Kona on the Big Island, and a couple months ago, Pele is, decided to stretch and start showing some colors. So we've had the eruption going on here for many, many, many weeks now, and the air quality is definitely affected. For us in Kona. We are many hundreds of miles away from the actual eruption, so we are safe here. But we definitely are still going out almost every day to swim with the dolphins and be in the waters, and we love it here.
Now, I got to tell you, Maria, I'm going to be transparent here. When you talk to me about, Dermot, why don't we talk about swimming with dolphins and the healing? And I thought, okay. I was a little dubious, but I did my homework. And boy, I couldn't have been more wrong about my skepticism and how being with dolphins. And I looked at the science first. I'm a bit of a scientific buff. And so I looked at the science before I looked at anything else. And the science is pretty incredible, I have to say. So we're going to
Yes.
talk about that today. I'd like to start off the show with something simple, Maria. Something just very easy for the listeners to swallow and digest. Parapsychology. It's such a big word.
Yeah.
When people talk about, when we think about parapsychology, I know, and for myself years ago, I thought of the woo-woo stuff, as Einstein called it, the stuff that was woo-woo. You know, he couldn't explain when he would look at certain results, that every time he looked at the result of the test, he would get a different result. And what they found was that when you look at something, as John Wheeler says, in the universe there's no observers, there's only participators. When you actually look at something, it changes the way that you're looking at it. And I thought, wow, that's pretty amazing. That is far outside the world of science. So share a little bit, Maria. What's your background been? How did you get into parapsychology? That sounds like, it's not something that would be on in the yellow pages.
Right. Yeah. Well, parapsychology is a word that I'm using these days because I'm really very interested in and enjoy marrying science with spirit. The spiritual experiences and the unexplained phenomenon energetically and spiritually that people are having, and then marrying that with science and with the psychological research on brain waves and all the research that's been done on Tibetan monks or Buddhist monks when they meditate. It's like, where are they going? Their brain completely awakens when they reach this point of meditation. And so that's all in the same category. So I think parapsychology is a really great umbrella for all these phenomenon. And I personally opened into this field at birth. Like, I'm one of those people who was born into a family with, healers and mediums and, full body trance mediums on both sides of my family. So on my father's side, which is from my Mexican heritage, we had curanderas, healers, medicine people. And then on my mother's side, my great-grandfather was an evangelical Pentecostal revival minister.
Wow.
During the Depression in the United States. And he would travel and have 5-day tent revivals with hundreds of people. And he would fall into speaking in tongues and, just the full-on possessed state of euphoric bliss, with, that is so classic when we think about that, that time and that, the revivals. Yeah. And so I feel like I inherited a lot. I feel like there's a lot in my DNA that is informing me. And as a young child, I would have very strange experiences of sleep paralysis. I thought I was the only one in the world experiencing this.
Yeah.
Turns out it's more common than people know. It's just it's like you're fully conscious, but your eyes are closed and you fall asleep, and then suddenly you're paralyzed. You can't move, and this is a state where you find yourself half in your body and half kind of on your way out to go into what we call the astral planes to dream. This is how we leave our bodies. Mm-hmm. The astral body leaves the body and travels, and you come back in the morning, and inhabit your body again. This is actually, I love the science of this. I know I'm kind of hopping around, but the science of this is that that ionic charge of the body actually shifts from positive to negative. And at that point, when you fall into sleep and you hit that, you flip your charge, your body magnetically releases this part of you, the astral body, from the physical body. And that's when you can lift off. Many people have had experiences of this. So I did all the time, lifting up out of my body, finding myself walking through the house without my physical body. And that's when I would encounter different kinds of disembodied entities. And for me, it was very frightening. Here I am.
I could imagine.
7 years old,
Yeah.
11, 16, with no mentoring at all, no support at all.
So your dad wasn't
until
your dad wasn't mentoring you, or I mean, did you tell your dad about this stuff?
No, there was no conversation about this kind of thing in my family. I went to Catholic school for 8 years, and so luckily I had this very deep foundation in that, kind of like what I call the Christ light love and the Mother Mary love field. So I would surround myself with that love upon sleeping as a child every night, almost compulsively, for protection. And I believe it did protect me. And as I got older, I finally got into metaphysics. I started working at metaphysical bookstores at 17 years old, and read everything in the store. Went on my first vision quest with Indigenous elders at 19, again at 20, again at 23, so my path kind of took off from there, and I had a lot of childhood trauma that I was also on a self-healing journey that was really became my sole focus in my 20s and 30s. So I found that the work with energy medicine and earth-based indigenous ritual and medicine was way beyond what, modern psychotherapy or like pharmaceuticals could ever do for me.
Yeah.
So I was sold at a pretty young age of the power and effectiveness of spiritual medicine.
Yeah. Well, your dad speaking in tongues and what have you, that probably had a bit of an impact at the dinner table too.
Yeah, that was my great-grandfather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was my father did. Who knows? Maybe my father did, but my mom's grandfather.
Yeah. Now you spent time. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a correction. Yeah, my mother's grandfather was the one who was the revival Pentecostal minister.
Okay, thank you. Now, share a little bit, because I find this. I've heard this in native cultures. These you mentioned it. These vision quests. And your first one was at 17. Could you share an experience or something like, why would somebody go on a vision quest, and what is it?
The first one I went on was at 19, and for me, vision quest, and then I led them for 12 years. I actually led hundreds of people into the wilderness to experience this rite of passage. So that's basically what it is. It's a rite of passage in the wilderness. And it is, you can participate in this if if there's an invitation from trustworthy native culture, but also there is opportunity in the modern world with adapted forms of vision quest, because it is such a profound, literally like one of the most healing and awakening experiences I've ever had in my life. That's why I did it for so long and led them for so long. So this is 3 days and nights in the wilderness, fasting with just water, or even a dry fast, no water even. And that's only with a really, really strong container, a very knowledgeable medicine person holding that ritual space for you.
Yeah.
The most adapted versions will have you on, having water, and 3 days and nights or 4 days and nights at a solo spot in the wilderness.
Wow.
And you're just there, you're in the elements, you're with the nature, and you face yourself on many levels.
So iPod or no iPod, Maria?
Yeah, right. I think it's pretty funny though. When I was 19, my very first vision quest was in the middle of Death Valley, California, and they really didn't regulate what we brought with us. So here I was, this teenager. I'd never been camping in my life. I had this 50-pound backpack, and I had like my Walkman, and I had my book and my journal and musical instruments.
Oh, that's funny.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
And the final vision quest I did for myself, it was pretty much just a tarp and me.
Wow. What advice, Maria, because you've certainly not only done your homework, I mean, your resume is very impressive, and people might think, oh, yeah, she's, one of these channelers, oh, they're so out there. I mean, I kind of hear that all the time from people, but you've certainly done your homework.
Yes.
What advice would you give to parents that are listening to the show? In terms of their children, because a lot of the children now are coming into the planet, and they're already coming in with a higher connectedness to spirits and to to higher beings, to higher dimensions. They have heightened ESP. They're more sensitive. What would you say to parents who have children and they're like, I have no clue what's going on with this child? She's seeing all sorts of things that are not there. What would you say to them?
Sure. And I have worked with clients like this, parents and their kids who have these gifts, these abilities opening up. And there's two things, I think, two main things that I would say. The first one is about creating a very respectful, safe container for your child. And the second one is to educate yourself and get curious. So by creating that container of love and respect for the child, and asking them what their experience is, but also learning yourself about energy, even if you're not as sensitive as your child, that doesn't mean it's not there. And to actually do some research yourself and maybe take a class or two to understand the subtle energy fields. And then there's just a whole world opens up for us, and we can, for example, when we lead classes for our students, my husband and I will take half an hour to set up the classroom energetically so that when our students walk into the room, they feel this sense of safety, groundedness. They can really relax and be present. And that's because of the energetic setup that we did in the room. And so if you're a parent and you have a child that wakes you up in the middle of the night, they're like, oh, I saw a ghost. It's like, okay, so let's waterfall your bedroom with a beautiful, golden light, and let's put rose pink in all the walls, and sacred symbols that have meaning for your family, in the corners of the room. And these things make a difference. As you said in the introduction, you were kind of referring to quantum physics in the sense of when you observe an atom or an atomic particle, when there is a witness to that particle, the particle behaves in accordance to the witness. Whatever the witness is thinking or wanting that particle to do, the particle will do it. And this has been proven time and time again in these psi experiments, PSI, psi experiments, right? Yeah. And so this is true. Energy follows our intention. It follows our thoughts. So my husband and I have an energetic setup for our house before we go to bed at night. We have an energetic clearing of the house when we have people over and then they leave. We clear the house out of their, of all of their energy except our own. And that's our preference. We want to do that for ourselves. We feel better when we do that.
Yeah. Now, that's not just for family, right?
Yeah, anybody, anytime. Offices, classrooms, teachers and their class, therapists and their client, practice rooms. So I think for parents, that would really, the second thing I was mentioning is get curious, I think that invalidating the ability or what's happening to the child, the phenomenon that they're going through, really validating that and getting curious and asking them more questions, especially young children. Young children haven't learned to lie yet or manipulate,
That's very true. That is very true.
Learned to do. Yeah, that's an external influence that teaches them how to do that. And so listen to them and get curious and then see how you can. Maybe you have an intuitive sense of what they need and how you can support them more.
Yeah, we in our society, Maria, I mean, you're right on the money there. We have a tendency to dismiss what we don't understand,
That's
very
right.
quickly. Anything out of the norm, and so I appreciate you sharing that. What are some things that you do to clear your home? I mean, I'm thinking of family when they come to visit. Family are like fish; they kind of go
Right.
off after a couple of days. What do you suggest for people on how to clear their home? Somebody who comes to their home, and like every now and then you have somebody comes to their home and they're in a bad humor, or maybe they're heavy. They just being around them is like, God, it's heavy.
Yep.
Being around that person. How do you clear your home?
Yeah. You just named it. The heaviness, you're sensing a vibrational rate. Somebody's vibrational rate is low, dense, right? And so when you look at the spectrum of vibration, at the bottom of that spectrum, you're going to see so it's emotional, really, the emotional states in humanity, right? So the lower emotional states such as shame, humiliation, rage, blame, guilt, resentment, these are all very low vibrations. And you go up on the higher end, the middle of the scale, let's just go there, compassion, understanding, neutrality. You go up to the higher vibrational spectrum, and you have bliss, joy, peace, connection, love, right? And so when we talk about clearing your house, what you're doing is you're raising the vibration of your home, which means also yourself. So if you have somebody come in and they're at a low vibration of grief, blame, whatever, and you just kind of are there with them and then they leave, you want to just raise the vibration of your home again. One way to do that is to use color. So color has vibrational rates as well, measurable vibrational rates. And so we can use colors to clear the home. My husband and I, Dwayne is my husband, we use the pearlescent white light with gold in it. So 18 karat gold, 24 karat gold, whatever. And we see a tornado through the house, or a wildfire, or monsoon rain, and we run it through the house, every single room, in between the walls, under the foundation, above the ceiling, everywhere. We just kind of hold that image and intention. Energy follows thought, energy, right? So we hold that for about 5 minutes, and at the end of that, it feels way better.
Oh.
That's simple.
Yeah. Now, are you a big fan of like incense and what's? I'm trying to think of. It smells like pot, but
it does work. Yeah,
what is
it does
that?
work, and it depends though. It totally depends. Again, we're talking about vibration. So when you use incense or sage or cedar,
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Right? These things work, of course, but how old is your cedar? How old is that sage? Does it still have the essential oils active in it or not? What I recommend actually as even stronger purifier of energy is essential oils, and you can, I think you can get those diffusers now that release it in your house, or even just lighting a candle and putting some drops in the wax. So, and that's a great way to purify the house and raise the vibration.
All right. Now we had one of those. We have it, and it kind of dried up. And you've inspired me now to tell my girlfriend, hey, let's get that diffuser thing. She bought it. I didn't even know what it was.
Right.
So we'll have to get that back up. All right. Let's. I want to talk to you a little bit. I found this fascinating, Maria, that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the man who created Sherlock Holmes, spent a lot of time studying mediums, which I thought, like, wow, now there's a very, very bright guy. And also I found out that Duke University, the way they got most of their money to start Duke University was through the parapsychology lab. They started it by J.B. Ryan in 1935, and that's how they got most of their money to start Duke University, along with tobacco, of course. Talk a little bit. You mentioned there at the start of our chat transmedium and channeling. Take the stigmatism, or when people talk about channeling. Okay. Take a little bit of the stigmatism away and kind of educate us. What is channeling, and why would somebody be interested in going to a channel?
Yeah. My take on channeling is that we all are channels. We all have this innate in us. Whether it's developed or not is the question. And these time periods that you're discussing, in the early 1900s, in America, through the 50s, there was way more acceptance of paranormal activity. This is the time of Edgar Cayce, and the White Brotherhood books were coming out, and Golden Eagle books and everything. And so there's this whole movement of spirituality and esoteric spiritualities that was happening in that time. Rudolf Steiner, another one. Buckminster Fuller, another one, right? And so these are the mystics of our time. And then something shifted historically. Something shifted, and everything came into more of a, there was much more negativity, negative thought around it, and suppression. Yeah. So after World War II, there was much more suppression of humanity and our consciousness in general. So that's when it all became this far-reaching thing that people felt it was foreign. But it's innate in us. We are literally conduits on the Earth's surface for electricity and for cosmic energy. Just our body makeup in general if you look at Chinese medicine and you look at the meridian lines that go through the body, these are the lines, the channels in our body that our life force energy, earth energy, and cosmic energy are moving up and down through our body all the time. So channeling is basically when we develop that gift, and there's a very specific system in our bodies that I call the soul incarnation system, and it's in our energy anatomy. And these are the channels that we develop to kind of classically channel in the way that we're describing now, the mediumship and channeling. So this is when we connect, we offer up our bodies as a vessel for a consciousness more than our own to come through and stream information through us. And there's a whole spectrum of how this can look. On one end of the spectrum, you have the blackout channels, those who just black out and they wake up and they're like, what happened? And you brought in this entity for 5 hours, And then on the other side of the spectrum, you have people who sit down to write in their journals, and they just have this stream of consciousness flowing through, and they write 50 pages of this information, right? So there's a whole spectrum.
Yeah. Now, when you talk about channeling too, I mean, in terms of we're all channelers, I mean, there's always songs, stories, poems, ideas, solutions. I mean, that's all a form of channeling. Would that be fair to say?
That's right.
Yeah. So now, what
taking
about
a shower, driving in your car, you get an inspiration. Yeah.
What's your experience around Maria? And actually, I'm going to go for a break here, and then we'll come right back. Would you be open to, because you channel, you are a channel. And you also train people in how to be a channel, because it's not something you can just go out and, I mean, there's training to it, and also there's I don't want to scare anyone, but there are dangers involved in it, I suppose, if you're opening yourself up in that way without any proper training. So I want everyone to hear that today. Let's come back.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. We'll come back and we're going to move a little out of channeling, and I'd love to hear your experience of, maybe share a message that you've gotten, something. The topic of our show is healing humanity. What's next? So maybe when we come back from our break, just a 30-second break, you could talk a little bit about some of the messages that you've been receiving in terms of, what the planet's going through. There's a lot of upheaval physically and energetically in the world, and I don't think people really understand. They want to, but I don't think the information is getting out there of, hey, what's really going on here and what can I do as we go through it. So maybe just ponder that, and we'll come right back with we'll be right back with our guest today. All right, stay tuned, Maria. Top of the morning, everyone. You're listening to the Celtic Coach radio show where science, spirituality, and self-discovery meet on KOWS.FM, the greatest darn radio station on the planet and maybe in the universe. I don't know. I haven't checked the other planets, but they're going to get back to me on that. Our guest today, Maria Christina Owl. Beautiful. We're just having a conversation around the world of parapsychology. We're also going to move into talking about dolphin healing for humanity. And if we have time, we'll jump in and talk a little bit about the summer solstice. Solstice meaning it's a Latin word. It means the sun standing still. Isn't that beautiful? Summer solstice, the longest day of the year. We're going to be talking a little bit about that. Maria, are you still with us, Maria?
Yes. Hi.
All right. Well, we appreciate that. Thank you. Really enjoying this conversation, Maria. So talk a little bit about, what are some of the messages that you've received in terms of the future of what's going on the planet now and our future, and what can we do about it?
Yeah, well, the phenomenon of channeling has just really spiked in the last 20 years because of what's happening, I want to say, in our solar system and how that's impacting our little blue planet here. So when the guides come through and I work with, my journey has taken me through a lot, and people, if you want to know about that, you can just read my bio or find out from the website or something. But so my journey has taken me through a lot in developing my gifts, and it did, ups and downs. And at this point, the last 5 years, I've been channeling a very high vibrational consciousness, these guides that are really in this universal presence. And the most loving energy and information has been coming through. And so what they've been teaching us for the last many years is about this, what's happening on the planet right now. We are actually, as a solar system, moving into a new section of the Milky Way galaxy that we haven't cycled through in about 25,000 years.
Yes.
And this new area of the solar system, and NASA actually finally came out and reported that they found it. They see this in their high-powered telescopes now, and they coined the name cosmic fluff, which is, I think is kind of funny. But it's a concentrated mass of photons, higher density of photons, that is just this, it's like cotton spread out through this area of the Milky Way galaxy, and our solar system has entered into it, and we will be going deeper into this, these photons, this photon belt, some people call it, and we'll basically be living in it for, 10,000 years or something. And this is impacting our planet in a big way. So the guides are coming through, and every message is to prepare us for this influx of light and these photons.
Yes.
And because this is going to impact our sun, you can go online and research the solar flare activity over the last 5 years and see how it's been spiking and spiking. And this does impact us. It impacts us psychologically. It impacts us physically. And so what the guides are really invested in is that we wake up to the fact that we can be preemptive and be, you could say, at cause, directing our consciousness, our energy, our actions toward more like embodiment, health, love, forgiveness, service to others. And this is what's going to allow humanity to open to this higher vibration without a lot of, you could say, trauma. Because those who resist, how when it's like, it's time to take a big leap and grow and change, and you resist that, and how painful it is to resist it, if you're angry at someone and you're resisting talking to them about it, and you resist and avoid, and it just builds up in you, you start to have physical symptoms and sleep disorders.
I do.
Same thing, right?
I do. Now, just for the listeners out there, when Maria's talking about photons are particles of light. Atoms are made up of photons, and everything in the physical world is made up of atoms. Now, Maria, I have science to back what you're saying in terms of NASA. They haven't released all of it, by the way. They're still holding back on some of the info. But basically, what I've found out is that every planet in our solar system is going through some type of shift, and it's a climate shift. It's fascinating. All the planets are heating up. Yeah. Some of the planets are even moving away from hydrogen, and they're moving into, and you probably know all this, but into an oxygenated environment, which is that's kind of unheard of in terms. And not only that, it takes thousands to millions of years for that to happen, and this is happening between 5 and 10 years. It's really incredible.
That's right.
Are you hopeful, Maria, about the future for the planet? Like people say, "Oh God, we're all going to hell in the handbasket. It's all going to blow up, and Trump's going to do this." Are you hopeful about the future, our future?
I'm hopeful simply because I really live by the belief that love is more powerful than fear. Mm-hmm. And I believe that what we have this opportunity to wake up to now is that very thing. We have this choice before us to keep feeding the fear stories or to generate even more love on the planet and direct that into new structures, like kind, sustaining structures that help all beings thrive. We need to completely restructure the educational system, or our way that we do agriculture, energy, politics, all of these, right, need to have a new foundation that is for the people, kindness, really caring for people's needs. And so that's what we have the power to do. And I think that's what the guides are really impressing on us, is like, we are powerful. And we're more powerful when we have a joint collective focus, and we come together to channel, right, to channel energies and information for those new structures. What can those look like?
Yeah, I'm going to snapshot what you said there in terms of our future, because when I'm feeling love or expressing love or being love, I feel very powerful. Now, I don't mean that in an organizational way or some type of love of power, but I feel powerful. I feel confident. I feel like, hey, I could do anything. And when I'm in fear, I'm about the size of a peanut. There's nothing I can do, and everything is wrong. So
that's right. It's a defensive posture.
Yeah, so love is more powerful than fear. You heard it from the lips of Maria Christina Owl. All right, everyone. Marina, I'd love to shift gears just a little bit because of, we still got 20 minutes in the show, but I'd love to shift gears. Was there anything else that you wanted to say in terms of the world of channeling or parapsychology before we move into dolphin healing?
I think just that if anybody at all is having experiences, because I was an out of control, quote unquote, out of control medium for decades. And it did take me decades to find enough support in the world to develop my gift in a really grounded, healthy, embodied way. And I just want to state very, very clearly that channeling is about being in your body. If you are dissociated, popping out of your body, disconnected with your body and you're channeling, it's not going to be very accurate information. You have to be fully married to your physical body with your spiritual energy, and then you are a pure, clean channel.
How would someone go about picking a teacher to learn that, Maria? And I'm going to get your website
right?
And stuff
Yeah,
at the end
well,
of the show, but where?
Definitely.
How would they know a good teacher from a bad teacher?
Energy, vibration. Just like you said, if somebody walks into your house and you feel a funky energy, it's like, okay, keep your vibration high until they leave, or, and so a lot of times your first intuitive hit or your discernment about the energy of someone is accurate. So just to trust your intuition. You don't have to give your power away to any teacher. Don't become a follower. You want to be sovereign and take the good stuff and leave what doesn't work for you.
Beautiful. Yeah. Oh gosh, I was going to say something brilliant there, and it's totally gone out of my mind. But that's that. There you go. God's saying, "All right, Dermot, don't try to be so brilliant." All right, Maria, let's talk about this now. I have to say, I did some research on this, and I found this subject to be very fascinating. There's a guy in Miami, Florida, by the name of, he's a neuropsychologist by the name of David Nathanson. And he's created a place there for children to come, children with autism, with different types of brain dysfunction, illnesses and so on, disabled children. And he found that music, animals, and water, these three things, disabled children and children with autism respond really, really well to. And he's done a lot of work with dolphins. Talk a little bit about your own experience with dolphins and why that might be important for us as a for humanity right now.
Yeah. This is my favorite topic right now. When I was 16, I got my scuba certification, and I began working with cetaceans, whales, dolphins, and porpoises. I worked at the Marine Mammal Center in Sausalito Headlands, and I traveled around the world helping researchers study whales and their migration patterns, etc. And so that was through my 20s. And then I just kind of went into the healing arts and really was practicing, therapy, hypnotherapy, etc. And my life has circled full circle back around to focusing on cetaceans again, except now it's from a spiritual lens rather than science and research in marine biology. So it's delightful to live on the Big Island and have this incredible access to these waters and the resident Kona spinner dolphins and spotted dolphins, the pilot whales. And so one thing that I have experienced myself and what I know about dolphins is that they have a very advanced brain. I'm not a neuroscientist. I can't tell you, like the anatomy and everything like that, but I can tell you that I have been in the water, dozens of times, very intimately with them. I've had that incredible opportunity through living here and being involved in this dolphin community here, right? And the encounters with them are so life-changing every time. So I want to tell you this story. The other day, my husband and I and a friend went to into the ocean, in a boat, and we had this incredible dive with a pod of dolphins. It was just the three of us, and we had this encounter where they immediately came up to me, a pair of dolphins, these spinner dolphins, and they came inches from my face with wide open eyes, looked right into my eyes. Of course, I have my mask and snorkel on, but eyes are open, eye contact, locked in with a gaze with these dolphins, and they spun me around. They spiraled me around about, I want to say like 8, 9, 10 times counterclockwise, really tight circles. So I was hard to keep up with them, but they would not stop spiraling this tight spiral around me, not breaking eye contact at all. And then they stopped, swam away, came back, and spun me clockwise. Oh. Again, locking eye contact now with my left eye. First it was my right, then it was my left, and now they're spiraling me clockwise. They did that about 7 different times. They had me doing like backwards somersaults in the water, keeping eye contact with them the whole time. It was nonstop. And meanwhile, they're sonaring me. They have this like, they make all these whistling sounds and
clicking sound,
chirping sounds. And I can tell you, I have not been the same since. They talk about vibration. They have, and I believe this is burgeoning in the healing fields right now, even in medicine. Sound therapies are taking off right now. Yeah. Sonar, sonic, frequencies have a huge impact on human cells, DNA, our consciousness, our brain waves, cellular regeneration. So they did a healing on me. I believe that they were recalibrating, resetting my whole system. Wow. They didn't just spin me one direction. They spun me both directions. Right? There's a reason for that.
How do you, what did you notice after it in your own body, Maria?
I was completely blissed out.
That's always helpful.
Yeah. I had and I'll tell you why that was profound for me. Well, you can probably sense it, but for about a week before, I had been feeling very contracted. I had a friend who was dying of cancer. I had a family cat had just gotten hit by a car. There was a lot of different things that were really contracting my energy. And I felt stuck in that for a week straight. I was really stuck. I felt kind of like nitpicky at my husband. And it wasn't fun. I knew it wasn't my true self, but I didn't know how to get out of it. And then after this swim, it was gone. It was completely shifted, and it still shifted. That was 2 weeks ago now. Yeah. And it's like there was a breakthrough. I had a breakthrough of whatever had been kind of locking down my energy, you could say. Yeah. And everybody in the water did. My husband was in the water with me, right? And he had a breakthrough too, because they were spinning him around. So, and I want to say that that's not always how they behave. It's completely different every time you get in the water with them. This is just the most profound experience I've ever had with them.
Yeah, I watched some videos about some of the stuff that this neuropsychologist was doing in Miami with kids with autism who did not want to be touched at all, just could not handle being touched, and were not speaking, couldn't be present with a person, no eye contact. Typical autism stuff that we might know about, and a couple of hours in the water, with these kids, 90% learning and cognition success rate. 90%. That to me is that most tests you don't get 90%. I mean, 90% is like, wow, okay, this really works.
Right. I have another great story similar to that.
Yeah.
There was a researcher. I want to say he was like a dolphin scientist, I guess you could say, in Russia, and he was working with women having water births. So I'm not sure. I don't want to give wrong credentials for him, but anyway, needless to say, here's this man in Russia who's taking pregnant women to the Red Sea to give birth in about 3 feet of this seawater, this salt water. And there are dolphins in the Red Sea. And so he would take them there and they would give birth. And so the first time this happened, it was with his wife, and his daughter was born. And the dolphins would come and support the birth.
Wow.
So this one particular time, the dolphins honed in on the woman who was in labor. They herded every human in the water away from her, literally pushed them out of the way, and just started sonaring her belly. And she went into, and this is documented, she went into this state of euphoria and laughter. And in this state, she gave birth to a daughter with zero pain and fear. Wow. Zero.
Yeah.
And so then after that, they're like, well, maybe that was just a strange phenomenon. So, how many births later? I want to say 20,000 births later, they still have 100% healthy births, dolphin midwife, water births. All the children, they followed these children. This is I want to say this is in the 70s that the first encounters were happening. All the children born with this kind of dolphin midwifing have IQs well over 150.
Wow.
They have all kinds of incredible abilities.
Isn't that incredible?
They're kind, they're generous, right? What were the dolphins? What are they doing?
I can hear all the listeners who want to have home births thinking, how can I get a dolphin into the tub? You've hit on something very fascinating there, because there's this guy, he's in his 90s, and he's the guy who dry cleans my clothes. He owns it's an old dry cleaners that's down the road, British guy. And I was telling him, I said, he says, who are you interviewing today? I said, I'm interviewing this lady and she's going to talk about dolphin healing. And his eyes lit up. Now, this is a cranky old British guy. And I thought, and I throw out stuff to him and he's like, oh, Dermot, you're nuts, But his eyes lit up and he says to me, Dermot, he says, I read a lot of biographies on people in the CIA. And I said, yeah. And I'm thinking, what has this got to do with, dolphins? And he said the CIA used to use dolphins to find trapped divers, or they would use dolphins to find ships that had gone down, submarines and stuff in murky water. And the dolphins would stay with the divers and direct and guide the divers to the boats. Isn't that incredible? Yeah. And what they found was that here's one of the things that I think makes dolphins so incredible. And you talked about it with the sonar. They have a sonar that can, and you said it, went into your belly, or was it the woman's belly? They can have a sonar where they can sonar out everything around them, and they can also, like Superman, can look at you and take a snapshot of the inside of your body.
That's right.
Yeah, and what they found was...
There have been a lot of amazing spontaneous healings for people who get in the water with the dolphins in the wild, including, ear infections, and a dolphin will come up and do this kind of ping, this loud, sonar ping into the part of your body that has an infection, and it's just immediately cleared. Yeah.
And that sound healing has been documented. There's no question about it. Do you know they found that complex clicking that sound that they make, that it alters a person's brainwave activity, because it's theta waves, which is the waves of, euphoria and bliss, and they live in that. Their brainwaves are theta waves, so it makes sense that if they're zapping you with theta waves, it's going to be beneficial.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Very cool. Oh, we could probably talk about it all day long. Maria, I'm going to, we have about 8 minutes left in our show, and I promised the listeners, and by the way, apologies, listeners, I had booked Maria for death and dying, not healing humanity. But I wanted to talk about that, and I know I had some emails. Oh, Dermot's really looking forward to that. I'll talk to Maria. Maybe we can have her come back on the show and talk about that at a later time. So I apologize. It's something that Maria's not doing anymore. She did do it before, but she's not doing that right now. So we can definitely talk about that at a later stage. The summer solstice, Maria, Latin for the sun stands still. The longest day of the year, where the tilt of the earth it's at its maximum tilt towards the sun. Why would anybody in the world be interested in the summer solstice happening on 21st?
Right.
Is it?
Yeah. I guess I get curious about, why would modern people suddenly not pay attention to these powerful portal days on the planet? We're just this thin slice of a couple hundred years of, our current generations are the only ones in millions of years on the earth who have not done anything to work with the influx of solar energy from the summer solstice, and then there is another energy that comes through at winter solstice,
Yeah.
And so what our guides have been really preparing us for, every single solstice, they want people to gather. They're like, please gather in circles, go to sacred sites. These are sites on the earth that hold a stronger electromagnetic, measurable kind of force. And often there is an ancient remnant, like Stonehenge, Chaco Canyon, right?
Newgrange,
or natural site like in Mount Shasta, and these areas are just stronger, again, measurable, stronger electromagnetic fields that are what I call portals. So this is cosmic energies can come down, just like our bodies as a conduit. The earth has these points on her surface that can draw in, drawing in from the cosmos higher concentrations of energy. Of course, summer solstice time, that influx is going to be like times 100, because it's the longest day, and we're getting just more information, is how I kind of perceive it. So what our guides are telling us right now is, how do we prepare ourselves to be clear channels for the influx of energy that's going to be coming through next week? We have 5 days that really are kind of like these, what I call portal days of summer solstice, 2 days before solstice day itself and 2 days after. And again, we talked about the photon belt earlier and the influx of the photons. Same thing. It's like, how do we open so that when this higher concentration of light comes in, it doesn't hit those stuck places in us and cause discomfort and suffering? That we are proactively working with these energies to clear ourselves. We are choosing that consciously. Energy follows thought.
Yeah.
So with the assistance of the sun and this influx of light, we can literally have a breakthrough, like what the dolphins gave me. You can create your own breakthroughs through collaborating with nature, especially during these solstice and equinox times.
So give us a few things, because for the average Joe who when hears, well, working with my energy and working with this and has really no clue. What are some just practical things, Maria,
Sure.
that we could do around this time?
Right. So this is an invitation to try something different and then to be curious. Like, do I feel different afterward? So one thing that we're telling our students to engage in is detox baths. So you basically just get a pound of sea salt, a pound of baking soda, put it in a bath, soak for about 10, 15 minutes. That's all. Rinse off, and do that for the 5 days of the solstice. That solstice time next week. Every evening, morning, whenever, do your detox bath. And as you do it, think about how you want your life to be. Is there any place in your life that isn't fulfilling to you? Are there any relationships that just aren't working for you anymore? Like there's conflict, it's not being resolved. Where do you feel drained in your life? With another person, with a situation, a job. Think about these things that aren't working, and then focus on how you want it to be. Where do you want your life to go from this moment forward? Because the field of energy that's created with the solstice magnifies, whatever, this is the esoteric piece of it, it magnifies whatever thoughts we're putting out. So if energy follows thought, solstice's energy follows thought times 100, So how do you want your life to be? Where do you want peace in your life, in your heart, in your mind? With whom do you want peace in your relationships? Do you want better health? Do you want more support with accountability in your life, or commitment you want to make to your health, to end a bad habit, etc.? This is a place to put forth those, you could call it prayers, visions, affirmations, and whatever language you use for that.
Now, would this be something that you'd have to write down, or are you just saying just to start to kind of reflect and get clear about, what's next?
Yeah, I was thinking to combine it with doing the detox bath. While you're in the bath, first of all, I release salt water. You're in this concentration of salt water, a pound of sea salt and a pound of baking soda, and it's physically sucking out the toxins. That's what it does. Your pores are going to open in the hot water, and it's going to suck out the toxins. We're all familiar with Epsom salt, how it does that. So as you're releasing your physical toxins into the bath water, think about what you're releasing, belief systems that aren't serving you, stories you've been telling yourself that aren't serving you, etc. What else are you releasing, And then at the end of your bath, focus on what you're bringing in, what you want, how you want your life to be. Bless yourself, love yourself, give yourself permission to dream big, to reach for the stars. Like, nothing is impossible. And I think that's what the solstice times help us to remember. Nothing is impossible. This is a huge amount of energy in service to us and our consciousness. So let's use it.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, I realize we're pretty much out of time here, Maria, but I'd love to ask you just to take everything that we've talked about today and kind of put it in a Maria message. What do you want the listeners to walk away with knowing from our show today, Maria?
Mainly that we are all much more than we know. We are way more powerful than we know. We are so deeply loved. We are not alone. And a lot of these limiting stories that we tell ourselves, our inner criticisms. These are founded on lies, conditioning, brainwashing, whatever you want to call it. It's time to let go of these limiting stories we have about ourselves and to really open to the truth of our beauty, our power, and then to be generous with that with each other, right? Like, love yourself, but be kind to each other. It doesn't mean be a pushover and, have people walk all over you. It means be sovereign. Know yourself. Know your boundaries. Speak the truth. Be respectful to yourself and others. Forgive, let go, and create the world you want to live in. Beautiful.
Before we go, thank you, Maria. That really summarized our show very nicely. Where, if people are interested in parapsychology and channeling, learning it, or connecting, getting some messages, talking to some of the dimensions or the spirits that you talk to, or just general information about what you're up to and how they can connect with you, where would they go to do that?
Yes, please go to my website, which is sacredfuture.org. That's not plural, sacredfuture.org. And once you're on the website, you will see many different offerings. We do live channeling podcasts all the time. We have a pre-summer solstice clearing and alignment podcast coming up on June 20th at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And we have another Sangha with the higher dimensional helpers that will be channeling through the following on July 7th. So there's a lot of information there how to plug in. I teach a holistic channeling and mediumship course that is 3 weeks and have an ongoing group support call for those who want to become embodied, healthy channels.
Beautiful. All right, so that's sacredfuture.org. All right, Maria,
that's
listen.
Right.
Thank you so much for your time, for your energy, for the wisdom, for the just for the conversation today. It was a real pleasure for me, and I hope we can get you back on the show at some point in the future. So from all of us here, Maria, a hearty and healthy thank you.
Mahalo, and thank you so much.
You're very welcome. It's been fun. All the best. Cheers, Maria.
Cheers.
All right, everyone, we're going to play some music here. You've been listening to the Celtic Coach radio show. If you want to hear more, you want to get a copy of the show, you can go to thecelticcoach.com, thecelticcoach.com. Anyway, stay tuned. We'll have lots of more Irish music coming up, and hope you enjoyed the show today. Boy, it was I got some great stuff from our show today. Healing Humanity. What's next? If you want a free copy of the show, you can go to the website, as I've said, and just put your name in there, and I'll send you a free copy every Monday. All right, everyone, that's it from our show. You've been listening to the Celtic Coach radio show, where science, spirituality, and self-discovery meet. I'm the Celtic Coach, and that, my dear listeners, is no blarney. Cheers, everyone.